let's start off with why is it a good idea, and why are people going this route from both an investment and a lifestyle perspective rather than buying secondhand?
Yeah, I think that, just I see one of the questions that came up was, do I buy a secondhand or an older apartment in Zichron Yaakov or something new in Netanya, and what's the benefits? So, mainly, obviously, in new developments, you're getting the latest technologies. So that'll mean from the tiling, from the way the electricity is supplied and put into the apartments, from the plumbing. So you're getting the latest technologies and the air conditioning units. And then very importantly as well is just from a cash flow point of view, from a financing point of view. So second-hand apartment, obviously, you need to come up with the money now, whereas in projects, and I'm going to cover it a little bit later, where in some deals now you only need to actually put down 10%, and the balance sometimes is payable at the end. So mainly timing, cash flow, and new technologies. But with people like Liad on the team, a second-hand apartment, if somebody does want a second-hand apartment, it's very simple nowadays with the technologies that we've just seen to actually make changes and do renovations to the apartments. So, that's the main differences.
Right. So I saw one of the questions were like asking what are the difference in prices of the different areas, and I'm not sure if we'll touch on all of that tonight, but I think that it is important to kind of talk about these areas of urban renewal, and why. I mean, the way that we select the developers in our portfolio. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that and the developers that we work with, and just give people a sense of when you're working with a team that kind of has vetted the projects and understands the value of areas?
Absolutely. So Nikki, the whole real estate is a company that's a second generation business. So the knowledge of property in Israel spans over 30 years. So there's a really deep knowledge of it, and it keeps on growing, with the younger generation coming into the business and understanding the trends. But just some of, where to invest in Israel. So some of the areas to invest in, obviously budget allowing, but, the urban renewal projects, we mentioned that there's a shortage of accommodation and a limited amount of space. So one of the trends at the moment is to go into older areas in Israel, taking older buildings that were built prior to 1980. The problem with the development then was the buildings were built quickly, and two things weren't taken in consideration. One is earthquakes, and the other was the safety room. So the safety room was typically put underneath the apartments, or they were communal in different areas. So we needed to address those two issues. And one of the ways they're doing it is in a system called Pinui Binui. So essentially what raise and rebuild. So really what the idea there is that city councils will give developers certain rights in certain areas. Because remember, when you take a building, take it down, and then what they do is they move the tenants out. Obviously, first they move the tenants out. The developers pay the tenants to move out. They pay their rental. They then demolish the building, and then they will replace that building and sometimes put 3 to 4 times more apartments in that area. So along with that, we need the city councils, obviously, to build infrastructure around the schools, the shuls, the roads. So that's one way of dealing with this. And it's become very popular because it's revitalizing these old areas. So they estimate there's 800,000.
Give us an example of a Pinui area that people would be familiar with.
So, one of the projects that we've got is in Yecheskel Street in Tel Aviv, in the old north of Tel Aviv.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was a project that took a long time. It was over seven years in the planning.
I was just going to ask, how long does the whole process take?
Oh. Well, that's part of the problem. It took over 7 years, but in defense, there was COVID, there was a war, but eventually, they do get off the ground.
Yeah.
So that was it. It took that long, but essentially in September last year, we demolished the building. The tenants have moved out, and we're going to rebuild it. It's about 2.5 times the size because it's Tel Aviv. So, that's the old north of Tel Aviv. We've got in South Netanya as well, a very nice project in Florentine and South Tel Aviv, a very nice project. So it's all over Israel. There's a lot of this going on as well.
So Pino, it's like it's going to the prime locations, but maybe moving into more of the peripheral areas where the older buildings are now being demolished and rebuilt.
Absolutely, and it's
and that's
exactly. And it's certainly not only the prime locations; it's right across Israel. There's 800,000. They estimate 800,000 old buildings.
Wow.
And we'll get to it. We'll get to them all. So basically what happens then is they'll do a whole new neighborhood. So you've got a new neighborhood, modern facilities in the buildings. So they'll put gyms, co-working spaces, tenants rooms. So it really just ups, the quality of the neighborhood as well.
Sure.
So, those are some of the areas where we find it very interesting.
People that move out get brand new apartments.
Yeah, so typically they will get a brand new apartment. It's often got an extra bedroom and it's got a balcony. So there's very little downside. The apartments, sometimes are worth 50-60% more. And the only real inconvenience is moving out and having to go and rent elsewhere. But financially, it's very, very lucrative for the tenants as well. The benefit to the developer is that the developers don't actually have to buy the land.
Oh, okay.
And that's often 50% of the purchase price. So they don't buy the land; they kind of just have to give away apartments. So that some of the areas. Also, I mentioned a little bit earlier, but army bases. So because the army bases have moved from the center of Israel down to the south and the north, now to buy apartments around those areas because there will be people in the army bases and they will be looking either to buy or rent apartments. So it's become very attractive to buy around where the army bases are. Talk a little bit now about the south of Israel.
Yeah.
Also become, there's a lot more space there. The train, the metro, the train system is now running there and it's going to get bigger and better. So you can live down the south of Israel and commute into Tel Aviv nowadays.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And the transport system is getting better and better on a monthly basis. So that's where, we see the investment opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Just some of the other trends that we've experienced last year, just about 101,000 homes were sold in Israel, and 45% of that is in new construction.
Yeah, wow.
So people have started, buying a lot more. And what happened as well was developers started offering, as I mentioned earlier, that you could now buy an apartment with putting down only 10%. And with sometimes 4 or 5 years later, the balance of the money.
Yeah, I think we've had some questions around examples of how much 100 square meter apartment will be, but maybe we'll get to that once we discuss the process. Maybe you can just give high level. It's it really depends on the area, so it's hard to be specific, but we can kind of give a range of what a 3-bedroom apartment would be, which is probably about 100 square meters.
Sure. Yeah. So just the trends, people buying property where Jerusalem last year, the most number of apartments in Israel was sold in Jerusalem and followed by Tel Aviv. For the English-speaking community, obviously Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Netanya, Modi'in, Renana, Kamegat, and Beit Shemesh. But, really the reason why we say that for English-speaking is because, or not English-speaking, but foreigners, is you want to be part of a community.
Yeah.
And you can get some really good real estate deals in other areas. But people that want to come and live and they want their children to come live, they want to be part of a community. So those are the areas where English-speaking and foreigners are buying in those areas there.
And I suppose because of the demand, buying off plan, it's almost a guarantee that it's going to be a great investment because those areas, there's such a huge demand. For apartments.
There'd be no guarantees. But
No,
historically,
that's yeah.
it's been good. And to my next slide, I just put an example. Um, Buying property in Israel is all really about the capital appreciation. Since 2008, we've had price increases. The trend has been that prices have increased in property in Israel, and mainly because of my first slide, because of the supply and demand. But here is an example. I mean, it's certainly just an example of an apartment that was purchased in 2022 for 3 million shekels. Similar apartments has recently sold for 3.9 million shekels. So it's increased by 31%, and the apartment's only going to be delivered in 2027. But I must say, that is just one example and a bit of an outlier, but it just shows that there is a trend because of the supply and demand curve for property in Israel to go up.
Also, you know, what's interesting is that abroad, when people see 6 rooms, they think it's like full rooms. And in Israel, it's actually 5 rooms and a living room that technically can be a bedroom. That's why it's called 6 rooms. I think this is something for people to take into account. So I just think it's really funny.
Yeah, no, good points.
Yeah.
I think also another point is that prices are always quoted in shekel and paid in shekel, not in any other currency, which often people
do that. Well,
and usually one of the rooms is a mamad or a bomb room. But in the newer buildings, they are designed as a very nice size room. I know my mamad is used. One of my kids use it as a bedroom. It's just reinforced.
Just got thicker walls.
Thicker walls and a heavier door. Yeah.
And I have clients that use it as a music room. They love that it's acoustically sound. So you can really make the best out of it.
Or an office. Yeah.
Definitely.
So just back to the question a little bit earlier about, buying secondhand or off plan. So the benefits, as I mentioned, is time to financing, 20% deposit. And I said, there are deals now where it's been 10% with a balance payable on delivery. And this can be in 4 to 5 years' time. The developers have been more and more so lately offering no linkage. So there's the building index in Israel, which we can discuss further, if we schedule a meeting, which is basically an inflationary increase. So sometimes they're not charging that or not including that in the deal, which is a big benefit. Some people say I should start my presentation with this, but basically in all the properties that we offer, the money that gets paid for these projects goes to a financing bank. So it doesn't get paid to the developer, it gets paid to a financing bank, and the financing bank issues the buyers with bank guarantees. So your money is secure because it's 4 or 5 years away. So that's very important that your money is secure. And as Liad will tell us, buying often these new plans is you can actually customize it for your own needs, your own layout, choose your own interior finishes, and really make it feel like your own.
Yeah. And also developers today, they give really, really nice standards, not like they used to. And it's nice to know that with simple upgrades, you can really make a huge difference when we go through the process together. Because it's just, sometimes just the right color combination and the layout of the living room that meets the dining room that turns into a guest bedroom. It's like types of multifunctional living spaces. So it's great.
And it's been amazing to learn about how you can plan spaces nowadays. It's really incredible. I saw a friend of mine's got a 12-seater dining room table that literally stacks into something that is about a meter by half a meter, and it becomes a side table. It's incredible to see.
It's amazing. There's so many. There's a couple Italian companies that's their forte, and Israel is their largest market. They said the largest dining tables are always supplied to Israel, and it's just being able to pull out a table for 14 people on Shabbat and then folding it back into the corner. It's a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. So just also, once we own the apartment, what's the rental market like for people that want to buy purely as an investment, have something in Israel? The rental market is very strong. Of the 2.7 million units currently in Israel, 760,000 are rented out. We manage a portfolio of close to 200 apartments, and we have 100% occupancy. So you've got a large number of people renting apartments. They say that the average Israeli works until the age of rents his apartment or their apartment until the age of 35. They're renting, and then they can afford to buy. So a very strong market. The yields in Israel are low, between 2.5% and 3%. But we must remember that a couple of slides before about the capital appreciation is very good. So very buoyant and strong rental market. Just an example of the increases that we've seen. Another example of some apartments that we manage in South Netanya to see, because of the supply and demand, and there's are not that many apartments for rental, our prices of rentals have gone up in Israel. So I'm going to get to that. But when you let out an apartment in Israel, your tenant pays the building maintenance, the homeowners association, the city taxes. So the rental income less if you've got a mortgage repayments, you've got some life insurance on the mortgage and some building insurance. But other than that, it's net to you. So we started in 2018 with this is a 5-room, 4-bedroom apartment in South Netanya. It was renting for 5,500 shekels. The current negotiations are up to 10,000 now. And that's mainly because it was a new area of South Netanya. It really started being built probably about 15 years ago. And as it started to get developed, it's on the beach, then, the fancy shops and the restaurants came into play, and it's become a very sought after area. So, that's one of the examples where we've seen very good capital appreciation, but also very good rental increases.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was good. Nikia, just a bit about our services. We work with, as mentioned, 30 years of getting foreign investors into the property market here in Israel, which requires commercial services, which means opening up bank accounts and transferring money into Israel. So we have a department that looks after that. We oversee the mortgage application process as well, liaising with developers and developer suppliers, selection of finishes, wall tiles, kitchen cupboards, sanitary ware, and accessories. And I think, that's one of the crucial roles that Liad plays on the team, providing architectural services, interior decorating services. And essentially, we then go into the project management. So while this is getting developed, it's important that developers are doing, what you've asked them to do. So we have the team that works with Liad on that. We have engineering services. This is key. So, the engineering services where we go and do pre-delivery inspections. So before you receive the apartment, we must sign off the apartment, make sure that everything's working before we get it from the developer. So we provide those services as well. And then a big part of our business, as I mentioned, is our property management, where we find tenants, put the tenants in, sign the agreements, collect the rental, and deal with any problems in the apartment.
Julian, I just want to clarify that we're talking about long-term rental and not short-term rental. So if people are to do short-term rental or Airbnb, that's not something we do. And then there was a question about the mortgages. So just to say that foreigners are entitled to up to 50% mortgage. And we work with multiple banks. It just depends on.
So, Nikki, I think just entitled to is more, they would qualify. So it's up to, the banks would obviously vet, but they would typically loan up to 50% of the purchase price. But it's all, the banks would need to approve all that.
Yeah, and obviously I'm just seeing a question here. The rules for new Olim are different. We're not going to get into them in this webinar, but whoever wants to sort of reach out and set up a time, we can definitely get into that. But Olim definitely gets benefits on the purchase tax and on mortgage applications. So definitely, if people are making aliyah, there's a way to structure it.
There's been a big benefit on the purchase tax.
Those intricacies of whether you're a returning Israeli or whether you're a new immigrant. I think we're not going to get into those details in this webinar, but please feel free to reach out.
Absolutely, yes. And we'll get the experts onto the line.
Yes.
One of the things that we spoke about was, with Olim, they can bring in containers opposed to clients that are, if it's like a developer's project and things like that, to do the purchasing in Israel. So that's something that's also beneficial for Olim, to bring their stuff from abroad, and the container and the taxes and so on. So
Yeah,
it's a big difference.
definitely. A few more minutes left. I'm just going to go over some of our projects.
We'll give you 5 to 10 more minutes. It's okay, Julian.
Okay, thank you.
You don't
So,
have to go through it.
So nice of you, Nikki.
So, we've spoken about where to invest, what areas. We've also spoken about the urban renewal, buying off plan. And just this is just a sample of the apartments and the projects that we've got across Israel. I mentioned earlier Off Hakim down in the south. Unfortunately, it was affected by the war. But there's some amazing areas getting developed in Off Hakim. There's some big tax advantages to Israeli citizens that live in Off Hakim. They get some tax advantages. So amazing things going on in Off Hakim. This project delivers in 2026. We've got.
Can you just give us an idea of price per square meter there for people, just compared to?
It's about 15,000 shekels a square meter.
Okay, so for a 3-bedroom apartment, 4-room apartment would be?
3-bedroom, it's probably about 1.7, 1.8 million shekels.
Okay.
Some of my favorite ones in Florentine, in South Tel Aviv.
Gorgeous.
It's an amazing area. It's going through a lot of urban renewal. It's young, it's trendy, really amazing. So we've got a building there. It's actually, we're going to be, we're moving the tenants out now.
Amazing.
And in April, we're going to demolish that building and build a very boutique upmarket building in the south Tel Aviv. Then we've got one I mentioned a little bit earlier in the old north of Tel Aviv. Just all about location. It's probably about 50 meters off Dizengoff, about 400 meters from the Tel Aviv port, on a very nice, quiet, one-way street. There's a park in the middle of the area, so it's really just exposure to Tel Aviv at its best.
Location.
Amazing, yeah.
Definitely location. This is
one of the best. Then in South Netanya, an urban renewal project in an area called Yamim Hatzira. A lot of people would have heard of Area Mim. This is literally across the road from Area Mim. And this is a real typical urban renewal project where they're going into an old area of South Netanya. And over the next few years, they're going to be demolishing all the smaller buildings, 3-4-story buildings, and building towers in its place, along with the infrastructure. I think that's very important that they plan the infrastructure really well around these areas. So this is a very exciting project because it's distance to the beach. It's got shopping centers, coffee shops, and it's half an hour away from Tel Aviv when there's no traffic.
This is a great off-plan purchase, this one.
Yeah, it is very good. Yeah.
We've sold a lot of these to people living abroad. It ticks a lot of boxes. It ticks the lifestyle box. It ticks the investment box.
And the community.
Yeah, and the community.
Right.
And you're 5 minutes, like the closeness to the beach is a game changer, especially when you come from abroad.
Yeah.
Canada.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is a project that it's good. It's the next Area Mim. It's just on the other side. It's probably about half a kilometer away from Area Mim. It's an area called Shirat Hayam. At the moment, it's a dust bowl. There's nothing there at the moment, but this is what's planned there in the near future.
What does pre-sale mean, Julian, as opposed to pre-sale?
So pre-sales normally when there's plans for the apartment and there's a plan. At the moment, this pre-sale is that we're looking for people that are going to be interested in buying in Shirat Hayam. I think just very importantly that at this stage, there's no financing bank at the moment, but money doesn't transfer hands until there is proper structures in place. So at the moment, what we're doing is we're looking for people that might be interested in this. We want to sign them up because it's literally the first project that's going to market in this area. So I think it's an incredible opportunity. There's going to be hotels in Francia. Can't really say it that clearly, but these the buildings are on a higher level. So, the ones that we've got are the project's first line to the sea.
So at this stage, my understanding from pre-sale is that people have to be kind of willing to move quicker because it's kind of it's more about reservation at this point.
Exactly, yeah. But I always say, Nikki, there's it's a big investment. It's it's not cheap real estate, so it requires time to think about it, to do due diligence, and that's what we had to do. We had to make sure that process happens very, very thoroughly, and there's a full disclosure of everything that you might need in purchasing property here in Israel. Yeah, so that's basically just a little bit about foreigners. 2020 Q3 2024 2024 there was 62% increase in apartment purchase in Israel by foreign buyers compared to the year prior. So foreigners are buying again. We've seen prices increase by double digits, so we believe there's still more to come because of that supply and demand curve. And one of my favorite quotes is the chairman of the Real Estate Appraisers Bureau, who do all the appraising for the banks to finance projects. And I'll quote her, she says, if you're selling an apartment in Israel, then wait. And if you're buying an apartment, then hurry up and buy. So we see the trend of price increases in Israel continuing over the next few years.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Julian. And I think one of the best part of our job is to hold people's hands through this process, and it's just like we were speaking about today. It's such a privilege to be able to be even having this conversation of buying property in Israel. So, so as next steps, if people are thinking about it, they want to sort of get a better idea of have that first conversation of where and how to invest. That's what we're here for. We will be sending out an email with some details. We'll also be sending out a recording. Please share the recording with your friends. We've seen a lot of one of the trends we've definitely seen is friends, kind of the fear of missing out element. One buys, another one buys, and then everyone decides, oh, we're all going to have a lifestyle investment in Israel. So if there are people that you'd like to include on those intro calls, we're here to help, and certainly reach out to Liad. We're so sorry that Debbie couldn't join us. We will definitely have a retake with her because she's she talks about her platform, which is incredible. We are going to send out a link as well. Just sign up to her newsletter. She updates people on the latest news on Israel real estate. But I think the main point of this webinar and what we try and do is to say, it shouldn't be such a scary thing to purchase property in Israel. If you have people on the ground that will help you, it's totally doable. It's doable in a remote way. And with the holidays coming up, if anyone is traveling to Israel and would like to see any of these projects, we'd love to meet you and take you around. And because I'm very, very strict on time, we are at 9:05. I'm going to end the webinar now and just wish everyone a Shavua Tov and a Purim Sameach. And please, God, may we see the return of all of our hostages soon, and good news for everyone.
Thank you so much.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so
much. Thank you, Liad.
Dan, who's always does the back end so brilliantly. Dan, we're more relaxed with you around, so thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure always.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Cheers, Liad. Thank you.